Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist as well as an astrological counselor. If you'd like to find out a little bit about the work I do, you can check out my website, which I have posted down below the video. Also down below the video is vaultoftheheavens.com, where you can go to get your specific Nakshatra placements. And you want to look at your sun, your ascendant, and your moon as being kind of the most prominent, with the moon, in my opinion, being the most important. So today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at Ashwini, but specifically the planetary energies that are associated with Ashwini and how they intertwine. And we're also specifically going to be looking at the four padas, or the four subdivisions within Ashwini. The four subdivisions are essentially, or the padas are essentially, how do I describe this? Two things. One is they represent the characteristics of Ashwini itself, or the characteristics of the specific nakshatra we're looking at. And two, they also represent life path progression, in that does the life path, or whether the process of change, I should say, does the process of change happen quickly or is it slow? So in the case of Ashwini, this is a very fast moving nakshatra. So the change, the evolution for Ashwini happens rather quickly. You can see with the first four, the padas here, we have Mars in the first, Venus in the second, Mercury third, and the moon in the fourth pada. Now, all four of these padas are fast-moving planets, relatively speaking, with the moon obviously being the fastest. So what this means is that the cyclical patterns that these planets follow in terms of their course around the sun, you can kind of think of every wheel or cycle that these things go through. Obviously they go through all the astrological signs, and as they're doing this, we're being evolved. And this is very much like kind of the passage of time. So, like I said, Ashwini is very fast. Now, the thing about Ashwini is that because this is very early in the growth curve, this is the first nakshatra, the earliest position within Aries, this energy is very rajasic, or the other way to say that is proactive. Another way to look at that is goal-oriented. And what I mean by goal-oriented is that rajasic energy moves towards things and it wants to attach to those things. So a goal, in some ways, is something we want to attach to. We want to move toward it and attach to it in order to achieve it. So this is the energy of Ashwini. Now, the other thing is looking at the planets that rule Ashwini. So we have the overall, because it's within Aries, we have the influence of Mars. So that's always going to be the most dominant. So what is Mars? Mars is the aspect of, not only within our charts, but just in existence, that gives us movement, motion. So what I mean by that is that you could say, the first instinctual impulse of a child from birth is movement. It's, the cognition isn't developed. All these other aspects, the emotional body isn't developed. All these things are not developed, but movement is immediate. It's instinctual, and, it's from go, it's working. So when we're looking at Mars, we're looking at aggressive, instinctual. However, this is not an energy that thinks about things. It's always driving you towards change. And in some ways, it's a very spiritual planet. It's kind of like you can think about the vitality that fills us, that would be kind of associated with our sun. That energy gets channeled through Mars. And you can kind of look at the symbol for Mars. It's a circle with an arrow that's pointing slightly up at a diagonal. Well, the slightly upward direction that arrow is pointing is in reference to the fact that it is a spiritualizing planet. So with this kind of spiritualizing planet, it also has a tendency to, think about a teenage boy. It sort of slams into things. And so as it's slamming into things, I find this really interesting. As it slams into things, that's how it works. It's a bit like trial and error in some ways. That Mars you slam into something, you go after it, didn't work, you move on to the next thing. So oftentimes, if you have a lot of Mars in your chart, one of the things you have to learn is that there are no mistakes, there's only growth. Otherwise, it can be much more malefic than what it should be. So on the next planet that's associated with Ashwini, which is the rulership of Ashwini itself, and this is interesting energy as well, because we're talking about Ketu. Ketu is the south node of the moon. It is the body without a head, quote unquote. Rahu being the head without a body. So the body without a head is actually in reference to subconscious. This is the subconscious energy that we're kind of bringing into this lifetime. The subconscious vibe is, again, it's expressed without necessarily the cognition of the individual being aware of it. So again, we have more unconscious energy going on here with Mars, instinctual, and Ketu, this deep subconscious vibe. However, this particular sign tends to be very prosperous in nature. It's very, it's always moving towards things. It's always very goal-oriented. It's proactive, and oftentimes it's associated with healers, etc. So this energy, with all this kind of unconscious stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean disaster. However, I will say this, is that the other symbol for this, for Ashwini, or rather the symbol for Ashwini, are these like galloping horses. So the galloping horses are kind of an indication in some ways that you have a wild, untamed horse, and then you have a tamed horse. Ashwini, early on, is kind of like a wild, untamed horse. So it's literally bursting with energy, but it's not under anyone's influence or control, and particularly not that of the ego or the personality. So what ends up happening is that, through a certain amount of trial and error, instinctually slamming into things, et cetera, what ends up happening is that these individuals need to slow down, put on some blinders. And what I mean by blinders is, you could say, accessing discipline, accessing, I guess, meditation, yoga, tai chi, qigong, any sort of practice that's going to help sort of consolidate the energy in the nervous system is going to help. And you consolidate the energy in the nervous system through concentration. So I practice Kundalini yoga. That's my particular path for stilling my nervous system, so that then I can witness and experience the deeper subconscious vibes that are rising to the surface. And again, this is a K2 dominated sign, so subconscious vibes are a big deal here. Now looking at the padas, the 4 divisions. So I got some keywords underneath. So we have Mars, and the keyword I read under Mars is driven. Again, just more aggressive energy is essentially what that means. So if you were born in Pada 1, you're going to have a little additional oomph or aggression. So Pada 2 is, I wrote luxury, you could say indulgences, but what we're looking at with Venus is now you have Venus intertwined with all this deep instinctual energy, all this subconscious energy, and then what you have is a movement towards sensual things. Venus being kind of like, I think about it as the conduit to the senses. So, again, sensuality, feeling, those things we desire to attract in life are often governed by Venus, aesthetics, etc. Pada 3, Mercury. So very bright, very intelligent people. So again, if you're born in Pada 3, you're just going to have a little more, I would say, emphasis on the sort of mercurial energies. Again, could be very fast-moving energy here as well, but very intelligent, very quick mind. Then finally, Pada 4, we have the moon. The moon, I wrote empathy. So empathy, the moon is basically the reflection of the sun. So the sun grants us this vitality, this energy that's moving within. The moon reflects that. But it's the reflection of that vitality, of that rich energy that is experienced, and how we experience it is as emotion. So you could say Ashwini are very empathetic people as well. So we're looking at driven, can be very indulgent, very intelligent, and very empathetic. And again, these are fast-moving planets. So the process or the movement, towards change or the individual evolution happens quite quickly. So with all that said, hopefully you have a little bit of better understanding of how these various planetary energies kind of intertwine in order to sort of make up the overall big picture of Ashwini, which again is the first essentially third of Aries. So with all that said, appreciate you watching. Thank you.